I want to bring in Weekly Standard staff writer Michael Warren right now, along with Daily Beast political reporter Betsy Woodruff. Good to see you both. Thanks so much for joining us. Betsy, kick us off here. Your observations from last night.
What struck me is just how bad last night was for the opposition to Donald Trump. I mean, the reality is he didn't just sweep these 5 states. He won majorities in all 5 of them, and he won double-digit victories. Now, I spoke with a number of the leaders of the anti-Trump movement throughout the day and evening yesterday. They all said, we're braced for this. It's baked into our plans. We knew it was coming. But the reality is that in this coming week, Trump's going to be able to say, as he barnstorms through Indiana and California, that Cruz and Kasich aren't competitive and aren't serious. And look, when your campaign message is that the delegate math is actually maybe somehow in your favor and that the convention rules might give you some sort of way out, some sort of parachute, you're in big trouble, and it's hard to pitch voters on the competitiveness or seriousness of your candidate.
Yeah, Michael Warren, your thoughts weigh in here, because it's interesting to note that continuing economy worries really seem to be driving voters on both sides.
That's right. It's the #1 issue according to the exit polls, and Donald Trump does really well among Republicans who care most about the economy. I was struck by just sort of how the feeling, at least in these 5 states, of the Republican voters coalescing around Donald Trump. And I was hearing this from, Republican insiders here in Washington as well, this idea that, Donald Trump was bringing on Paul Manafort, a well-known and sort of a known figure in Republican establishment circles. This was giving a lot of Republican establishment folks this kind of feeling of, okay, the plane is landing, Donald Trump is sort of inevitable now. And the voters, again, a much smaller turnout than in previous primaries in these recent 5 states, but the voters seem to be coalescing with the Republican establishment on this. I agree with Betsy. This is a really tough row for Ted Cruz, or John Kasich for that matter, to hoe.
Dagan, it took a while, but they're finally getting behind. It feels like the parties are uniting.
It's the psychology of what happens after a major blowout win like you saw in New York, particularly with Donald Trump, who has run all along on, I'm a winner, get behind a winner. Wow. Do not underestimate the momentum that Trump had after New York, and now moving into Indiana. He is leading in the polls in Indiana over Ted Cruz. And I'll point to just Pennsylvania. He was polling at about 30% 3 weeks ago. He delivered more than 56% of the vote in Pennsylvania, and he won every age group and every income group in that state where John Kasich was born. Yeah. So, again, very powerful. Yeah.
I look for passion. And I speak to Trump supporters, and I haven't seen this passion in years. You speak to the Clinton people, they're very in their heads. The Trump people are very in their hearts. So it's almost like it doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. They believe in him. For what Hillary says, it's only a reason not to vote for her.
Yeah. And for me, Kasich was the big loser last night, because to give Cruz some fairness, he never claimed that he was going to do well in the Northeast states. This was not his battleground. This is supposed to be where Kasich was really supposed to have a shot, and he clearly failed miserably. So I continue to not see any sort of justification for him going forward. Indiana, as you said, Dagan, is definitely Cruz's alibi. Trump is going to win California, probably handily. So I don't see a path for Cruz if he doesn't find a way to pull off Indiana. Maybe that's what his surprise announcement
He needs to pull it off in a Wisconsin-like way, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do that.
But he may get governor from today.
Michael and Betsy, let me ask you, what do you make of this election data compiled by Breitbart, which basically says voter turnout on the Democratic side was down 4.5 million, 20% versus 2008, when obviously the turnout was huge with Barack Obama?
Well, it's not a huge surprise, and it just indicates how weak and how little energy there is overall sort of within the Democratic Party. One thing that struck me last night was the fact that the Democratic establishment had a really good evening, not just in Hillary winning 4 out of 5 contests, but also in Pennsylvania, where the chosen Senate candidate of the Democratic Party establishment won. Also in Maryland, where we saw the same thing. Chris Van Hollen, a more establishment, moderate, business-friendly guy, handily dispatching Donna Edwards, the more progressive candidate. So what we're seeing is that the less exciting, less sexy, less dramatic forces in the Democratic Party are actually the ones that are winning. That's where the energy is. The energy is on the side of the party that ultimately is probably going to be less impactful as far as growing it, getting young folks involved. Yeah, in terms of progressives, it's not there.
Final word from you, Michael Warren.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. We look at the all the enthusiasm on the Republican side, and that must mean very good things for Republicans in the general election. I think things actually kind of change completely once the nominees are decided, and Democrats have a real big motivator in Donald Trump being the Republican nominee. That's going to be something that's they don't have an exciting candidate at the top of the ticket if Hillary Clinton does go on to win, but they do have a really exciting enemy to go after, and I do think enemies in politics are more motivating than inspirational figures.
Yeah, it's a good point. That's basically what Debbie Wasserman-Schultz said as well. Yeah, it's okay. Well, we will leave it there. Betsy, Woodruff, Michael Warren, good to see you both. Thanks so much. Comment